The Grand Regency Hotel sparkled like a palace that evening. Its golden chandeliers flooded the ballroom with light, reflecting off crystal glasses and polished marble floors. Laughter, polite conversations, and the gentle music of a live orchestra mingled with the clinking of champagne flutes. The city's most powerful men and women were gathered to celebrate one thing: the engagement of Alexander Kane, billionaire industrialist, to Sophia Lancaster, the poised socialite who seemed born for wealth and spotlight. Alexander looked every bit the mogul. His jet-black tuxedo was cut to perfection, his cufflinks discreetly engraved with his initials, yet behind his composed exterior was a man who trusted very few. Business taught him caution. Rivals were always waiting for him to slip. But in his personal life, he had let his guard down. He believed Sophia was different, graceful, charming, and intelligent. She was the woman everyone said would complete him. The evening unfolded smoothly. Guests congratulated the couple. Photographs were snapped for glossy magazines, and Sophia, shone in her silver gown, her laughter floated above the crowd like champagne bubbles. But not everyone was looking at Sophia with admiration. Nia Johnson, a young black waitress, moved quietly along the edges of the ballroom. Balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres, she kept her eyes alert not just for guests who needed service, but for trouble. The daughter of a single mother from a working-class neighborhood, Nia had learned early that survival meant noticing details others ignored. It was this habit that drew her attention to Sophia. Nia had just stepped behind the bar when she noticed Sophia lean forward, her diamond bracelet glittering as she slipped something small into a crystal glass. It wasn't ice. It wasn't sugar. It was a tiny packet of powder dissolved with a quick stir. She smiled sweetly, picked up the glass, and instructed the bartender, "Make sure Alexander gets this one. It's his favorite." Nia's stomach tightened. She wasn't supposed to get involved. This wasn't her world. She had seen enough in life to recognize the look of deception. When Alexander strolled toward the bar minutes later, his bodyguards trailing discreetly behind, Nia's heart raced. He reached for the drink. In that instant, Nia acted. She brushed past him with her tray, pretending to stumble slightly. Lips barely moved as she leaned closer. "There's a drug in your drink," she whispered. Alexander froze mid-sip, his sharp blue eyes locking on hers. For a moment, it seemed as though time itself stopped. The music, the chatter, the glitter of the ballroom all dimmed. He didn't drink. Instead, he gave her the faintest nod, his expression unreadable. To everyone else, it looked like nothing had happened. Alexander raised the glass, swirled it, and smiled. But inside, his mind was already running faster than the stock market ticker he read every morning. Who was this waitress? Why would she say that? Could she be trusted? And most importantly, was his fiancée hiding something dark beneath that dazzling smile? The celebration went on. Guests cheered as Alexander gave a short speech holding Sophia's hand. Cameras flashed as they kissed for the crowd. But his grip on her fingers was tighter than before, not out of love, but out of suspicion. For the first time in years, Alexander Kane felt something unfamiliar creeping into his perfectly controlled life. Doubt. And it all began with one whisper. Alexander Kane had built his empire on instinct. Mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, he thrived on risk, but only when calculated. The moment Nia whispered those 6 words, he knew his instincts had to take control again. He didn't confront Sophia immediately. Doing so would only tip his hand. Instead, he turned to one of his most trusted bodyguards, slipped him the glass, and muttered under his breath, "Lab, urgent." The guard vanished into the crowd like a ghost. Sophia, meanwhile, floated through the party with effortless charm. Oblivious to the storm brewing in Alexander's mind, she embraced guests, accepted congratulations, and even leaned into Alexander, whispering sweet nothings. But now, every glance from her seemed like a lie. Every smile felt rehearsed. For hours, Alexander played along. He posed for photos, toasted to love, and thanked the crowd for their support. Yet behind the mask of celebration, he was already crafting a plan. If Nia was right, Sophia wasn't just deceiving him, she was endangering him. Later that night, after the guests had left and Sophia retired upstairs, Alexander summoned his assistant. "Find the waitress," he ordered, "the black girl from the staff." Quietly. By morning, Nia sat nervously in Alexander's penthouse office. The glass walls overlooked the city skyline, but she felt like she was trapped in a cage. "You risked your job," Alexander said calmly, studying her. "Why?" Nia clasped her hands. "Because I saw her put something in your drink. I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't just stay quiet. My mama always told me silence in the face of wrong is as bad as doing the wrong yourself." Alexander's gaze softened slightly. He was used to people lying for money, for power, for influence. But Nia didn't look like someone with an agenda. She looked terrified and honest. That afternoon, the lab report arrived. Alexander's guard handed it to him, and with one glance, his world tilted. Traces of benzodiazepine detected. A sedative. Powerful enough to incapacitate. The whisper was true. Alexander Kane sat alone in his penthouse office long after Nia had left. The lab report lay open on his desk, the cold words staring back at him. Benzodiazepine detected. Sophia Lancaster, the woman he had been ready to marry, had tried to drug him at his own engagement party. He could have stormed into her suite right then, demanded an explanation, thrown the evidence in her face. But that was emotion speaking. And Alexander Kane had built his fortune on keeping emotion in check. Instead, he decided to investigate. The next morning, he asked Nia to return. She arrived cautiously, her nervous hands smoothing down her blouse. As she stood before him, "I need you to tell me everything," Alexander said, his voice firm, but not unkind. "Not just what you saw last night. Tell me about Sophia. Did you notice anything else?" Nia hesitated. She wasn't used to talking to billionaires. Her world was tips and minimum wages. His was power and privilege, but something about his eyes intense, searching, yet respectful. "He speaks she." "She was too calm," Nia said slowly. "When she slipped that powder, she didn't look scared or guilty. She looked like she'd done it before, like it was routine." Alexander's jaw clenched. "Routine," he repeated. Nia nodded. "No, I don't belong in your world, Mr. Kane, but I've seen people use stuff like that before. In my neighborhood, it happens. Girls drugged at parties, people slipping things into drinks. It's ugly. When I saw her do it, I couldn't let it slide." Alexander leaned back in his chair, absorbing her words. He admired her courage. She had no reason to risk her job, no reason to step into danger for him, and yet she had. "You realize," he said slowly, "that what you've told me could change everything. My reputation, my company, my life." Nia straightened her shoulders. "Then you need to know the truth before it's too late." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The hum of the city below seemed distant. Alexander realized something. Unusual was happening. In his world, loyalty was bought with money, forged through contracts. Yet here was a waitress, a stranger who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. And she had chosen honesty. "Thank you, Nia," he said finally. "You may have saved my life." When she left, Alexander's mind was already moving to the next step. He summoned his head of security and ordered a discreet background check on Sophia. No detail too small, no lead ignored. He wanted to know everything. Her finances, her habits, her connections. By nightfall, the first report landed on his desk. What he read made his blood run cold. Sophia was drowning in debt. Behind the glamorous gowns and perfect smiles, she had borrowed heavily. From shadowy sources. Credit cards maxed, hidden loans, and whispers of gambling nights at exclusive underground clubs. And worse, there were rumors she had been involved with a notorious fixer in the city. A man who specialized in scandals, blackmail, and leverage. Pieces began to connect in Alexander's mind. If she had drugged him, what was next? A staged scandal? A photo? A recording? Situation engineered to ruin him and leave her with control or leverage to siphon his wealth. His stomach turned. He had almost married this woman, but now he had proof. And Alexander Kane never let betrayal go unanswered. 2 nights later, Alexander invited Sophia to a private dinner at his estate. The mansion was aglow with candles, the dining hall set with roses and crystal. To Sophia, it was the picture of romance. To Alexander, it was the stage for a reckoning. She arrived in a flowing red dress, her smile radiant. "Darling," she purred, leaning in to kiss him. "What a surprise. Just us tonight?" "Just us," Alexander replied smoothly, masking the storm beneath his calm exterior. Dinner began with wine and small talk. Sophia laughed, her hand brushing his across the table. She played the perfect fiancée. But Alexander studied every word, every glance. Seeing now what he had missed before, the subtle calculation in her eyes, the way she steered conversation toward his assets, his travel plans, his vulnerabilities. Midway through the meal, Alexander poured 2 fresh glasses of wine. He slid one toward her. "To us," he said, his tone even. She clinked her glass to his and lifted it toward her lips. But before she could drink, Alexander's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Funny thing, Sophia. At our engagement party, someone warned me not to drink the glass you prepared for me." Her hand froze. "What?" she asked lightly, though her smile faltered. "I didn't believe it at first," Alexander continued, his eyes locking onto hers. "But I had the glass tested. Do you know what they found?" Sophia forced a laugh. "Darling, this is absurd. Someone must be trying to sabotage us sedatives," Alexander said coldly. "Enough to incapacitate me." Sophia's mask cracked. Her eyes widened, her fingers tightening around the glass. "Why would you do that, Sophia?" Alexander pressed, his voice low, dangerous. "Why would the woman I was ready to marry try to drug me?" Sophia stammered, her polished composure unraveling. She tried to deny it, to shift blame, to insist someone else had planted it. But Alexander was ready. With a snap of his fingers, his head of security entered the room carrying a laptop. On the screen, clear as day, was the security footage from the ballroom. Sophia slipping the powder into his drink. The color drained from her face. "It's not what it looks like." "Shh, it's exactly what it looks like," Alexander replied, his voice icy. Sophia collapsed into excuses, admitting her debts, her desperation. She claimed she never meant to hurt him, only to gain leverage, to force his hand into sharing more wealth with her. But her words were hollow. The trust was gone. Alexander stood, towering over her. "Our engagement is over, effective immediately. By tomorrow, the world will know who you really are." Sophia's tears fell, but Alexander's resolve was unshakable. He had built an empire by seeing through lies, and tonight, he had seen through the biggest one of all. The fallout was swift and merciless. By dawn, Alexander's PR team had released a carefully crafted statement. The engagement between Alexander Kane and Sophia Lancaster was officially over. No details were given publicly, but within hours, whispers spread through elite circles. The leaked footage of Sophia drugging his drink soon surfaced online, sealing her fate. Sophia went from socialite to scandal overnight. The same magazines that once praised her grace now tore her apart. Invitations to high society galas vanished. Friends distanced themselves. Debtors circled like vultures, demanding payment. She had gambled everything on deception and lost. Meanwhile, Alexander's reputation remained untarnished. If anything, the revelation of betrayal only strengthened his image. The press praised his composure. Investors admired his decisiveness. And the public sympathized with his narrow escape from treachery, but Alexander himself felt little satisfaction. Wealth and reputation were intact, but his trust and love had been shattered. One evening, weeks after the scandal, he asked Nia to meet him again, this time not in his office, but in a quiet cafe downtown. She arrived hesitantly, still unsure why a billionaire would summon her. "You saved me," Alexander said simply, once they sat across from each other. "With 6 words, you changed the course of my life." Nia lowered her eyes. "Only did. What anyone should have done?" "No," Alexander corrected gently. "Most people wouldn't have. Most would have stayed silent." They sat in silence for a while, the clatter of dishes around them filling the air. For the first time in a long time, Alexander felt something he hadn't felt even in Sophia's company. Authenticity, not. Nia wasn't dazzled by his wealth. She wasn't playing a part. She was simply herself, honest, brave, unpolished, but real. And in that moment, Alexander realized the most valuable lesson of all. Trust wasn't found in status or beauty or glittering promises. It was found in truth, and sometimes the truest voices came from the most unexpected places. Sophia had fallen. But from her fall, Alexander had discovered something infinitely more precious, the rare kind of loyalty money could never buy. And it had all begun with a whisper.